And we're live. What's up, guys? Jason here, Morph, Mixology, Reptiles. Welcome back to another Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, actually, for our guest here. But we'll get to that. Yeah, hope everybody's night's going well. There's going to be a new, I guess there won't be a change to the intro too much, but I do have a new potential sponsor coming on board, so we'll talk about that maybe a little bit later. But some of you guys are going to want to be subscribed to the channel for as well, because there could be some free stuff involved with that. So say hi to everybody real quick. Herbert claims that him being first in the chat is gone, but I don't see it, so I can't believe it. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, so without further ado, from all the way across the pond in the middle of no man's land, freaking Gavin. What's up, boss?
How's it going, guys?
Hey, thanks, dude. First of all, you told me it's what, 3 a.m.?
3 a.m. in the morning.
That's insane. So I have enough time. I have a hard enough time getting people on the East Coast to do this with me because that starts at midnight for them, or starts at 10 rather for them.
Yeah. And
so usually we're into like 11:30 midnight by the time it all gets done. And then you show up and you're like, hell yeah, man, not a problem. I'll make it work. I'm like, are you sure? Like 3 o'clock in the morning, that's insane just to come be on some dumb internet show. So
yeah, I think you've got to go the extra mile and do your little bits and support fellow YouTubers and all that sort of stuff. And I love just talking, geeking out about snakes. So why not? It's not many things I get up in the middle of the night for,
Yeah, for sure. And you've got some homegrown support. Marvel Balls UK's in the house.
Hey, you do. Marvel Balls, awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, man. I mean, from the outset, I really appreciate you taking the time to be here for sure. So, so for anybody that, as we let people start rolling in, that if by some miracle they don't know who you are, who are you?
Yeah, I'm Gavin from literally, Balls2U, nothing crazy, nothing major. That's who I am,
And so I guess we'll start there. I've heard the story a number of times.
Yeah.
Be it on Chris Eaton's podcast or Bullshit or what have you. But where did Balls2U come from? How'd you get to that? And is it intentionally spelled with just a U?
Yeah, well, the whole Balls2U came from, and as you know, I've told the story, but it came from sort of, it's an English slang word as far as I'm aware, that back in the day when I reached out for help, there was very, very few people who was willing to help me. And just simple questions like, my female's doing this. Is this normal? Or, this is happening. Is this meant to happen? And very few people were sort of willing to help me or even send me an email back. And I noticed that if I sent them an email regarding a sale of a snake, that they were very much quick to reply.
Yeah.
However, they were very, very, very less, intending to help me just for a general question. So the whole Balls2U came from the whole saying that Balls2U, mate, I'll do it myself. It
like
was
up
more
yours.
an FU more than a Balls2U. And then I thought, you know what? I think that's going to work. And it was a bit tongue in cheek. And I started it off because I was operating under my own initials back in the day, which was my own registration. Mm-hmm. And I thought, you know what, that'd be good as a handle, and sort of give it back to people. And that's where it started, and it just rolled from there. And it was more of, if you're not going to help me, I'm going to help myself. and then I'm going to help people. I'm going to do completely the opposite of what you've done for me. And what's strange, Jason, is a few of those people that I reached out to are quite well-known breeders within the industry. So yeah, it was quite weird how it turned around, you know.
Yeah, you know, and it's interesting. It's, you know, 4S's Python said that, you know, Gavin's amazing for the community, and I would agree to that because I don't know. In fact, while I'm talking here, I'm going to pull it up. I want to see if you recognize this picture. But I reached out to you early on, very early on when I first got started, and you were more than receptive to talk to some random no one that was getting going, and I really appreciated that. So look at this picture and tell me if you recognize. Do you recognize that video on top?
Oh yeah, the egg cutting runs. Yeah.
So that video, it says, was a little over a year ago. It's you know, YouTube doesn't tell you an exact date. It's probably been closer to 2 years by now. But you even mentioned, and you're wearing my shirt in that thumbnail, my very first design. But you had mentioned us in that video, and it was one of those things like, and I remember talking about it, like, you know, people have issues in this, and nobody comes into this knowing everything. And it doesn't matter how big or how important or celebrity status or whatever you get, you know, you were at the bottom of that totem pole at some time too, you know. And if it wasn't for the people that were down there coming in, buying your animals, you know, trying to research and grow the community, and that, you wouldn't be on top anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I always think, I never think, how could I say, I never put myself on that pedestal, Jason. I always try and, I always, you know, consider myself as coming into the hobby, and I'm always learning. I've learned some new stuff this year. I found a new technique that I want to show and share with people that may help them with their clutches and stuff like that. And I think it's important that we share and we support each other. Even now, you know, when new people come into the hobby and, you know, they give me a shout out, I appreciate it, you know, and it's always nice to be noticed for, you know, if you take a couple of minutes out of your day to answer a question and help someone, you know, even just a little thank you message, you know, thanks for that, Gav. You know, you really helped me. And, you know, I'm not going to lie, I probably get about 20 new messages from random people every day.
Oh, wow.
And off the face of it, doesn't sound a lot. But then when you've got 20 replies.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know, all of a sudden.
Absolutely.
And then they reply back. And that's on top of friends, family, you know, Patreon members, people I know within the industry that are messaging me, helping me. I had a message today from Andy over at Club More Reptiles or Club More Pythons. He's got the two on the go, and he needed my advice. And I said, sure, here's my number, give me a call. You know, so that one message turned into like probably about half an hour, 40 minutes phone call. But at the end of it, he got the answer. He already knew the answer, but he just wanted some reassurance because Andy's a good guy. But you know, that sort of thing. And then on top of that, like I'm doing my work. I'm trying to do stuff with the snakes and, you know, doing stuff with the family. So I always think, you know what, if I can just help one person make a difference, then it's all worth it. So I still love to help people. I want to help people. The only difference is the more popular you get, the more questions you get asked. So you've got to answer that, and again, time and all that sort of stuff. So you know what, I appreciate everyone, whether they're coming into the hobby or whether they're leading the industry. I appreciate everyone, you know.
Yeah, you know, someone else I that does the same thing that I really appreciate, and we actually you obviously know because we had to coordinate this for the people that are watching that weren't paying attention. You were actually supposed to be next week.
Yeah.
And tonight was supposed to be Earl Jones from Lone Star Reptiles there in Dallas, but he's got some work stuff that got screwed up on the schedule. So we're actually having him next week instead. But Earl's that way. You know, I message Earl somewhat frequently, and then I won't talk to him for 3 or 4 months, and then I'll send him a message, and he'll say, "Hey, send me or give me a call or whatever." And so I did the other night. I was asking about something, and he said, "Give me a call." And I sat out on my back patio and talked to him for an hour and a half on the phone.
Yeah,
and Earl's that way, and so are you. And it's a little bit different for us trying to call you, obviously, but and that's a big deal, and I appreciate that. And I have to admit that I have a slight shortcoming in that regard because, I mean, I'm no big cheese in this game by any stretch, but I do have a relatively sizable following, and I get messages more on Instagram because that's where I am mostly, but I get a ton of messages all the time, and a lot of it is, "Hey, I picked up this snake from my buddy, and he claims it's a this. Can you help me ID it?" And I flip through the pictures real quick, and it's obviously just another normal from PetSmart or whatever. And I'm like, man, dude, I ain't got time for that. Like, I'm not going to be. I don't have time to sit here and try to explain how genetics work to you. Yeah. If you pair this and this, how you're going to get these and how you're going to know and all this other stuff. And it's like, man, there's plenty of resources out there and plenty of videos of guys like you and I talking that can be sourced. It's like, and so I feel bad sometimes because half the time I don't even answer them, and I have the ability to filter a lot of the messages so that I can delete them without them knowing I ever read them, which is a nice feature for garbage messages. I get a lot of that too. Yeah. But I do feel kind of bad about that. But at some point, my followers and all of us for that matter that don't do this full time need to realize we have real jobs and families and full-time careers and that kind of thing. And so it's a balancing act for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, just going back, Earl's a great guy. We'll speak. I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, I kind of feel bad because Earl calls me more than I call him.
He says it's not quite a bit.
Yeah, and we'll talk. Or he phoned me the other day after we spoke, and he said, "Hey Gav, are you okay swapping? Is everything going to be okay?" And that's the kind of guy Earl is. He's double checking if I'm okay, even though I said to you, "Yeah, let's do it." He's still checking.
Yeah, he was super concerned. He was going to try to figure out how to work around it and everything else. I'm like, dude, don't worry, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's one of those people in the community which, we always need people like that. And going back to you answering your messages, I think sometimes if like you said, there's videos out there, there's information out there, and occasionally, I've done videos on how to set up egg boxes, for example, and people will still ask me, "How do you set up your egg box?" And with that sort of question, I go, "I've done a video. Just go to my YouTube channel. It's all there, And it's very difficult sometimes because my natural reaction is to go, "Oh, this is what I do. This is how I do it." And I've had to learn over the years that, I don't do the snakes for me isn't full time. I was in a position where I could have turned it full time, but I chose to do it another way where I'm doing it like this. I'm sort of I'm running a company and I can do it majority from home. So the HQ is at the end of my property, so I'm able to sort of, you know what I mean. But I've still had to learn to go, instead of sending a message that's loads of paragraphs, I've had to sort of say, look, go to my YouTube channel and watch my YouTube channel. And that has saved me a lot of time, making the videos where I can just send people a link or go and do this, and it certainly does help. And I think at the end of the day, it's how the messages come up are presented as well. If they're just messaging you going, "Do you know what this is?" you sort of feel a bit like, okay, not like hi, sorry to bother you, but I've brought this. I'm not sure. Could you just help me, please? That's that. A bit of echo. A bit of what's the word? It's 3 o'clock in the morning, but just answering, just sending a message with a bit of thought behind it. Hi guys, I'm sorry, you may be busy, but when you get a chance, could you look at this? And I get people messaging me, and I've looked at the message, and I thought, well, I'll answer that when I get back home, and then they're sending me question marks, and I just think, wow, that's not how you speak to people,
Yeah, that, and I'll tell you the other one that is a personal policy of mine, and most people seem fairly receptive to it when I explain where I stand on it, is I'll get a message and it'll say, hey, I just had my first clutch. It's this to this, and I'm not really sure what I got here. Can you help me figure it out? And I'll tell them, I said, look, I'm sorry, but I have a personal policy not to help people identify their snakes genetically, because I'm not well versed enough in it to know all of them anyway. All the combos and different genes, this and that. And I don't want them to put so much stock, in my opinion, that they mislabel it for a customer or something else, and it comes back around on me. So I choose not to do that for people because I'm not comfortable with it.
Yeah, I think, nowadays, people who are doing the pairings, new people in the hobby, they have the opportunity to buy a 4-gene snake and a 4-gene snake and breed them together. Exactly. Where, Jason, back in the day, I was working with posset albinos, and, we never had that ability to breed the 4 genes to a 4 gene and see what we produce. And I was talking to Ozzy the other day, and we were talking, and his Morph market store policy is he doesn't guarantee the genetics. And even on his own animals, it's a bit different if it comes from a super or he's bred it and he knows what's in there.
Yeah, or simple, of course.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty, that's pretty, that's clever, and I think that's really right, because the more we go on in this hobby or this industry, we're assuming that that's what we see. I brought a snake off Aussie, and it had enchi, and now we know there's enchi in there. I mean, when I brought it was a hatchling, and I bred it, and some crazy enchi clone combos come out. I was blown away. I phoned Ozzy and I thought, oh, what's this? And he's gone, there's enchi in there, bro. And I've gone, yeah, that's what I thought. And now you look at the parent, the dad, and you can see the enchi. But he didn't see that in the beginning. And this is someone, who we feel he's at the top of the ladder, let's say. And I think it's wise as you go on to sort of, be a bit more held back. And, I remember seeing people argue on the forums, and people would post pictures saying, I've just hatched this, what's this? And then you'd see people commenting, oh, it's this, and this. And then you'd have someone going, no, it can't be that, and that, because it doesn't have this, and it doesn't. And you're like, whoa, So it's very difficult for us, and like you say, for you, because occasionally the first thing I say is, can I have a picture of the parents?
Absolutely, yep.
Because we know mis-ID'd snakes happen. It happens to all of us. It happens to the best of us. And occasionally we can see something in the parents that they may not have seen. So it's very difficult, I think, to ID snakes. Again, over pictures, you're not looking at it in your hand. It's very difficult. And I think sometimes people aren't aware of how difficult it can be to ID snakes. And again, I've had people message me saying, I've brought this animal from this big breeder and I don't see this. Do you see this? And then that puts me in an awkward position, because that big breeder may be a good friend.
I hate when that happens. Yeah.
And I don't want to put myself out there and say, well, I don't see that gene, or, because they'll probably go running back and go, hey, man, I want a refund. Gavin at Balls2U doesn't see this gene, And the first thing, again, same things to cover your back, just goes like stuff like, I don't see that gene, but you're going to have to breed it to prove it out.
Yeah.
And if they've brought it from a reputable breeder, they'll always back you up. They'll always say, look, don't worry about it. I'm sorry, it hasn't got that gene. I'll sort you out.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? It's very difficult sometimes over pictures.
Yeah. Corey Heft, huge shout out. Thanks for the super chat, man. Appreciate it. It says, Gavin is the man. I'm sure he has a camera in our snake room because he always manages to make a video at the same time a problem comes up for us. So, and to that point, you talk about, you send people a response to questions like, hey, I made a video about this, check it out. I actually have about probably 8 or 10 or so videos saved on YouTube in a watch later folder, whatever, of other people, like your egg cutting videos in there. I have a mites video from Brian Cusco. I have a couple of different ones. And then when people send me a message, hey, I think I've got mites in my collection. What should I do? I said, this is hands down the best video I've seen on it. Go look at that. And it's Brian's, or whatever.
Yeah. And what's very difficult as well is where we are located in the world can have, depends on your problem, depends on what, whether frontline may be available for you in your country where you have this issue with mites, or whether it's not, or whether you can get certain products, or humidity, temperatures, seasonal changes. It just depends where you are in the world. And one thing I learned, I talk in Fahrenheit, because kind of back in the day, I was working with, American breeders, and they were helping me. I was getting help from people like Ralph Davis, and, reading the forums. Ozzy helped me, Mark Mendek helped me. And there was a couple of people in the UK that helped me. But it was mainly, a lot of my self-taught was from American YouTubers, because YouTube in America was way in front of, I was probably one of the first people to go mainstream in the UK with the whole YouTube thing. Yeah. And there wasn't nothing out there for the UK breeders. And I thought, you know what, I've learned this from the Americans and Canadians, but does that work over here in the UK? So I'd put that into practice, and occasionally it would work, occasionally it wouldn't work. So I then had to switch and do things slightly different to suit here in the UK. And that's one of the things I say to people, research. But on top of that research, you've got to also understand where you live in the UK or in the world, because there's no point you doing stuff that someone in Florida is doing when you live in the UK, which the UK weather is more like Canadian weather. Like when I was over at Toronto, their weather was virtually the same as ours here in the UK. So, you know what I mean? You want to research for sure and watch videos, not just one person, watch multiple videos, just to get that research and that knowledge. And, common sense sometimes may not be there, but you've got to research.
Well, and that's the cool thing about the explosion of YouTube and these live streams and up and comers getting involved online and that kind of thing is, I have, like I said, I've got those videos of certain subjects that I'll pass around and people ask. But then on the flip side, I'll hear, like I was watching Brian Barczyk's live stream the other night, and when he had the guys from R&B Reptiles on, and I had super chatted something about a question they had or whatever, and Brian obviously knows me, he was here and whatnot, and they talk about me somewhat regularly, and Brian looks at Ben and Rob, I think it is, and said, "Hey, I mean, do you guys know Jason?" And they piped up and says, "I mean, I watch his videos. I don't know him personally, but I watch his videos." And I was like, and they'll say, "Well, I watch it for like well, I don't do it anymore, but for the rack builds and stuff like that." And I've heard that numerous times where say I'll get a message from somebody and said, "Hey, somebody recommended one of your videos on building these racks, and that I'm starting mine. I just wanted to show you my progress or whatever." And that's super cool, Yeah, that's part of that whole community thing that I think is pretty rad.
100%. And you've inspired someone, and I don't know Brian personally like you do. Like you said, you've been to your place, you've hung out, they talk about you regularly. I don't get a chance to watch a lot of the podcasting stuff. I tend to listen to it in the car, if you know what I mean. And I've heard him mention you quite a few times. And, Brian, I'll tell it like it is. Back in the day, I was probably Brian's number one fan. Yeah. And I think we all were. And we followed snake bites, and it was, it was really, really, it was almost like a TV show for us, the way it was put together and the little bits, and his staff would do little segments and Chewy and all that sort of stuff. And I remember watching the scaleless cutting video, and I remember jumping for joy when he hit the scaleless animal. And from there, for me, I just lost what happened with Brian, and it just went completely the other way. And I never, it just changed after that. I was so over the moon for him, and I was jumping around, and I knew it was pre-recorded, but it felt like it happened just there and then. I was messaging my friends going, "Hey, Brian's just hit a scaleless, have you seen it?" And it was obviously pre-recorded, and then things happened, his end, a lot of stuff, and I lost that respect for Brian. And I was kind of disappointed in him and the way snake bites had just gone. He'd gone, and it was something that I'd watched for years and supported, and I felt really let down. And then I want to say probably about a year ago, I don't know if it was just me just growing up and realizing that, he started to say certain things about what was going on in the past, around about that time with stuff. And I quickly realized that actually, this guy, he's done things for him. And because I felt like he'd done his supporters an injustice, but now I understand it. And I have respect for Brian for doing what he's done and what he's done and still does for the industry. I think it's amazing. But maybe one day I'll get to see him and sit down and have that conversation with him, and on a personal level, where I can explain my, where I felt I'd got let down as a supporter. But I've refound him again. It's like, you looked up to him as a ball python breeder, and he was certainly, at the forefront of it. He was the pinstripe, all sorts, and he was a pioneer in my eyes. And for your hero, I suppose, to just, I'm done with ball pythons and start doing different YouTube stuff, it was really hard for me to grasp, but I have respect for Brian now. I think he's put more bums on seats than most or any people in the reptile community.
No doubt. Yeah.
So, I think, Brian's a great guy, and the fact that you've had him there, I am a little bit jealous.
And it's interesting because obviously snake bites and whatnot, and then his vlog, which I've been watching since day one, that was a huge part of my wife and I getting over our fear of snakes, getting into getting a few and then all of this, you know. And you know, and I've been totally transparent. I am in the Reptile Keepers Against Brian Barczyk group on Facebook, but I do it because I'm a kind of person that I like to see the evils of the world for what they are, so that I know what I'm working with. You know what I mean? I'd rather not be shadowed from that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I watch what they pick out of stuff and what they talk about and and I'm not claiming that Brian is 100% innocent in everything that he's been charged with. I'm not saying he's 100% guilty. You know, has he had his past indiscretions in that? I'm sure he has. We all have. Yeah. Are there things in his collection, past or current, that could be easily frowned upon? Probably. We're all that way. Yeah. None of us are perfect in this. But they were being very, very deliberate about where they were picking stuff out of, like single freeze frames out of videos and stuff like that. And that started to bother me to the point where I was almost being like a little defensive for him. You know what I mean? But I looked at it as somebody that I was, you know, he always said early on, the opposite of fear is knowledge. And I started to accept that and watch what he was doing and watch even the stupid stuff back in the day that, you know, where he was intentionally getting Chewy bit and, you know, that kind of crap. Like, I was seeing that as, oh, well, that's not a big fucking deal. Like, what are we worried about? You know, kind of thing. And then when I started corresponding with him about eventually going out to the Reptarium and him coming through here on his trip and everything else, and then while he was finally here, I just realized, you know, and some people might say, oh, it was just an act he was putting on a face because he was, you know, a guest in your house or whatever. I don't know. This was like months in the making. So it would that'd be a long game to try to play if you're just trying to put on a show for somebody, you know? Yeah. And I just realized, dude, he's just a guy that's really passionate about what he does and about, you know, making awesome content and entertaining people and trying to educate people and make a living while he's doing it. And to the best of his ability, try to get back to the community that allowed him to get to the status he is currently. Yeah. You know, and he's just a cool, genuine, down-to-earth guy, and I have no issue with it. Now, I've never been to his facility. He claims he's got an open-door policy that says if you think you can come in here and find mites or find this or find that, by all means, come knock on the door. Yeah. You know, and someday, and he's told me I'm welcome up there anytime I want, you know, not as a patron necessarily, but just come up and spend a couple days, and if our government ever allows me to travel again, I will for sure. Yeah. But he just, you know, it's solidified for me that he's not what that group of people make him out to be, you know.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, we've all made mistakes and it happens. And then the difference is a lot of people won't talk about their mistakes. A lot of people won't say what they've done. Like early this year, I sent a snake out. We have a bit of a situation here in the UK where we use dedicated reptile couriers to send animals out. We don't have stuff like FedEx and, you know, where we can ship snakes through the post, if you like.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But there is one company that will do an overnight type delivery where we use a polybox, a heat pack, and very similar to what you guys do in the US. And
is it only within the UK?
So, yeah. They will ship, or before, obviously, we left the EU, we left Europe. We could send it to Europe as well. I could get snakes, you know, pretty much within 24, 48 hours from Europe. But a lot of people don't send them through this courier business. It's a company called Walkers. They don't send them through there because we've been kind of spoiled by a dedicated reptile delivery service where they'll come once a month, they'll collect your animals, and over a 4 to 7 day period, they'll deliver your animals up and down the country. Oh, wow. Now, Yeah, so it's a special heated van. You know, it's dedicated only for reptiles.
And so it's literally done by vehicle freight.
Yeah,
Because I'm ignorant to the scale of the UK. You know what it takes to drive from one end to the other and whatnot. So
well, I'm sort of like in the middle of the UK. So from me to get to Scotland or Glasgow, which is, it's not the highest point, obviously, but it's sort of it's up there. It's like a 5-hour drive. You know,
oh wow, okay.
People in the States will drive 5 hours for fun. You know,
I do it because that's the next closest town.
You see what I'm saying? So
yeah.
So anyway, so I made a mistake this year. I sent it with this company, and I use a heat pack called Uniheat.
Yep.
And Uniheat have a 40+ hour pack, and this 40+ hour pack has issues. Now, I didn't sort of realise what type of issues. I was informed, look, these packs may not work. Put 2 heat packs in just in case. I thought, right, okay, I'll do that. So
I think I know what you're talking about. Let's see here. Yeah, so I've got the same ones. You're talking about these for people that are curious.
Yeah, I'll show you.
Yeah, I use the same pack.
Yeah.
This one here. Yep. And there was I don't know if people are aware, and they may still have, so we'll do a little PSA really quick. On the edge of these is a printed date.
Yeah.
Now don't quote me on this, but there was you have to ask, I'll tell you, the person to message if you're in the States is Debbie Price from Reptiles2U. Yeah. She knows exactly which one, the date series, that were completely bunked. The whole batch was bad, and I had a handful of them too.
Yeah. So obviously these are predominantly obviously in the States, and the company I get them through was Heat Packs UK. Great company, Dan there, great guy. But basically there's a problem with them. It's used, there's different materials. Dan Sutherland over at the Snake Keeper actually made me aware of this, because he works very closely with Uniheat, and he made me aware of this. So I put 2 heat packs in with this animal. As it happens, it wasn't a case of the heat packs not working. They actually overheated.
Or too much, yeah.
Okay, so the animal turned up obviously dead. It's a learning curve. You know, we here in the UK, we're not used to sending animals in poly boxes with heat packs. Now, was that the courier's fault? No. Am I standing here blaming Uniheat? No. That's my fault. It's my animal, my responsibility.
Yep.
I take that and I learn from that. So luckily I use now the 72-hour heat pack.
Okay.
And there's something different with them, the materials. But now you shed a bit of light on, there was a faulty batch. That kind of makes sense.
Specific date range, and it was this somewhat recently?
Yeah. This was
so I think the date range in there is like through late May or something. So there is a group in there that's bad.
Yeah, and don't forget, here in the UK, these have had to be shipped into the UK. So
yes, they're delayed anyway.
Exactly. So anyway, so I reached out to Heat Packs UK. Dan, he said, Gav, I wasn't aware of it. So I sent him Dan Sutherland's over at the Snake Keepers details to get in contact with him. He did, sure enough, confirmed it. And they sent me out free of charge the 72-hour heat packs.
Oh, cool.
Which is fantastic. So I made a mistake. You know, I killed my own animal, you know, and it's hard for me to accept that, but I have to accept it because it's a learning curve. I didn't mean to. It wasn't intentional. It happened. I've done a video. I haven't released it yet on YouTube. It's on my Patreon channel. But I make mistakes, and I think, you know, well, I know a lot of the breeders out there, we all make mistakes. It's something not to be afraid of. And you know, back in the day, no one would talk about mites. You know, don't say you've got mites. No one will buy your snakes. Well, how can you help someone if you portray yourself to be this perfect breeder? And not only that, sometimes it helps other breeders to know that, you know what, these people that we place on a pedestal actually have bad stuff happen to them. You know,
they're real. Yeah,
exactly. You know,
yeah.
It helps everyone go, okay, this has happened, but guess what? It's not the end of the world. Let's learn from it. Let's put the information out there so other people don't make that mistake. And that was where I was coming from with the whole Balls2U thing, trying to help people learn from my mistakes. And I've never been afraid to put information out there to say to people, look, you know, I got mites from a particular bedding, that was that came to me. It came from a reptile shop, and after that, I learned that, you know what, if we're going to buy bedding, I advise anyone not to buy it from a reptile shop. Not knocking reptile shops, but if you're buying bedding from a reptile shop, it's a high possibility or a possible that it's going to come with mites. Yeah. If you're buying it from a warehouse, the chances are it isn't going to have mites. And mites isn't an issue if you know how to deal with it correctly and you can deal with it efficiently. But again, don't be afraid if your collection's got mites. It's not the end of the world. Just get it under control, deal with it, move on, learn for, you know, the future. So yeah, you know, we all make mistakes, and it's important that we learn by them and share them as well.
Well, let's we got a couple questions here, and then I want to actually move away from snakes a little bit. But so Bobby asks, Gavin, my understanding is feeding live is illegal in the UK. Do you have any tips on getting snakes to transfer to frozen thawed? How long does it take to feed your collection using frozen? And reference that, Marvel Balls UK replied and said, it isn't illegal to feed live in the UK. It's just frowned upon. However, if it comes to feeding live or your snake dying, you do have that option to feed live. And so, interestingly enough, the my video this week, which I got to finish editing, is my feeding technique now, because a little over a year ago, I sold my entire rat production operation and I went to frozen thawed. Yeah. And then I moved, and then I had to build this room all in the summer while it was breeding season, you know, the whole 9 yards. So it's taken me until now to finally get things to where it's somewhat, you know, easy, I guess. But my video this week is on my process. But what do you, first of all, is it illegal? And secondly, what do you think?
So I'm going to contradict Marvel Balls. Marvel Balls is awesome. But yeah, it is illegal. Yes, and there's so I work for, well, I don't anymore, but I still I do consultant work for local authorities or local councils, and one of the issues is that gets brought up, and this is where it can be illegal, because government will pass a legislation. Yeah, and your local authority will pick bits of that legislation to use. Okay, so if they've got a problem with, I don't know, ASB, which is antisocial behaviour in that area, they'll look at the antisocial behaviour policy, the legislation that's been passed by government, and one council or one authority may use this, this, and this, and then the other authority will use this, this, and this. So it is illegal if your animal will take frozen thawed, but you're feeding it live. So in other words, there's the animal cruelty factor then steps in. Even though they eat live in the wild, they don't eat frozen thawed. In the UK, it's very frowned upon, and she's right, to feed live. But the difference is when we sit there and we watch an educational video, like on Discovery with David Attenborough, and you see a lion killing a gazelle or something, it's nature, you know. And over here, or in some instances, what can happen is live feeding videos will get used as entertainment.
Yeah.
So straight away, the UK government jump on that and go, no, this is cruel. And there's a lot of legislations out there that they will pass where we're not aware of something. So you could be in your instance, in one state, and something be perfectly legal. You go to the next state over, and it's illegal. Yeah. So
like in my case is ASFs. I'm not allowed to have ASFs here at all.
Yeah, yeah. And that's crazy because in the UK, we don't have that situation because at the end of the day, ASFs is their natural food. Yep. So you're telling me I can't keep a species that I want to feed its natural food source to, but yet you're telling me I need to look after that animal to the best of my abilities. Well, the best of my abilities is to give it ASFs. Yep. Yeah. So it kind of contradicts itself. So the law and if you're feeding live prey to animals that can take frozen, then if your local authority find out, they will come in with their animal welfare along with the RSPCA and do something about it. And that will be prosecution. They will take you to court. You can, and it will go to the magistrate's court, and you will end up getting a criminal record for your abuse to animals or animal cruelty. Okay, so in that aspect, it is against the law to feed live rodents to our snakes because you can still end up getting a criminal record for it. But it's very grey, Jason. It's kind of like if I can prove that snake doesn't take frozen thawed and will not take frozen thawed, then it's okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm a snake breeder. I breed snakes. I want this animal to survive. The only thing it will eat is live. Okay, that's fine. That's okay. But if you're doing it for, and they have to prove beyond reasonable doubt, yes, they have to get all the evidence to take you to court, to prosecute you, for you to end up with a massive fine and with a criminal record for animal cruelty. They have to prove that without a doubt. And this is something that, you know, again, we live in a society where if we see someone do it, then we think, oh, it's okay for us to do it. But you've got to learn the law. You've got to know where you live, what's considered acceptable, what's not. I have a particular breed of dog which is banned within certain areas, and he's registered. He has to be insured. He has to be muzzled. There's so many, you know, if I move out the area and go to a different area, I have to make them aware that I'm moving and he's coming with me. Sometimes they'll have to come out and do a perimeter check of the property to make sure the property is sound so he can't escape. You know, there's so many. What is it? He's an American Pit Bull Terrier. So, and he's like a puppy. He's like a puppy.
I laugh because of mankind's asinine thought process when it comes to quote unquote aggressive dogs, which is a term as dumb as assault weapon in my book. Yeah. Because no dog is aggressive. It's just a product of its owner.
Yeah, it's very rare he barks. You know, he will protect me and the family, don't get me wrong. He actually belongs to my stepdaughter, but he's here living with me. You know, he's registered, he's insured. You know, we've done it correctly. But my point is this, that you've got to know where you live, the laws and the legislations. And again, government pass a legislation which is this big. your local authority may only use this much, but they can use this much of the legislation if they feel, you are doing something wrong. And get this. So if you have a fallout with your neighbors and they know you breed animals or you breed snakes and you breed rodents, the first thing they're going to do is report you to their local authority and go, this person is mistreating animals. So the next thing, you've got the local authority and the RSPCA knocking your door saying, we want to do an inspection. So my thing is educate yourselves, learn, and going, that was a two-part question. So the law side of things, you've got to know the law and educate yourselves to be absolutely certain on what's what. Feeding frozen thawed, I've always done it, so to me it's not a thing. I have a few animals which are live feeders, and it is easy to just drop a rodent in there, shut the tub, walk away.
Yep.
However, and the one thing I have done, because I'm not used to it, if you like, I have put a rodent in there, shut the tub, and thought, I'll check that in a moment. And I've gone out and I've done stuff and I've gone, oh, shit. So I've rushed back in, I've checked. They've either eaten the rodent or the rodent's just in the corner. It's very easy to forget that. With frozen thawed, when you're feeding the next day, if that snake doesn't eat that frozen thawed, you haven't got to worry about that until the smell hits you the next day. You think something's not eaten.
Yep.
So it's not. I feed ASFs. As many people know, and feeding frozen ASFs isn't hard whatsoever. So yeah, that's a big answer to the question, but hopefully that gets the information out there.
Yeah, and the biggest, and I even said this in my video, like I said, it'll be up Thursday for us. The biggest thing is patience more than anything. There's a 1,000 different ways you can prepare them. There's 1,000 different ways you can present them. At the end of the day, it's, they're live beings too. They have a temperament, they have an attitude, whatever. And patience was key. I mean, last night while I was feeding during my video, I have a female down here, a proven breeder that I picked up from a buddy of mine. I don't have to look back, probably 7 months ago, something like that. And she has never eaten with me.
Yeah.
Live, frozen, it does not matter. She has never eaten for me. Yeah. And he told me that she was a great eater. It happens. She's not losing a bunch of weight, so I've never worried about it,
Yeah.
And last night, out of the blue, for whatever reason, I opened her tub and put a rat in front of her face and she took it.
Boom. Yeah.
It happens, and it took about, there was a point when I moved in here, I was fighting all kinds of problems. I had just cold turkey quit feeding live overnight.
Yeah.
I had just spent 37 days or 38 days with all of my snakes in an enclosed trailer at 95 degrees during the day because I had nowhere else I could put them.
Yeah.
Then I moved them over here and put them in a garage that was exceptionally well lit, not secured, not closed off, with crazy temperature fluctuations, the whole 9 yards. And so I was down to, in all honesty, 30 or 40% success rate for feeds on a regular weekly basis. Nowadays, I'm up to, there's 103 animals or whatever it is in here. I'm up to probably 85% or better on a regular basis. There's the usual suspects. There's that girl, my proven breeder, and she female down here hasn't eaten in, God knows how long, but and again, I watch them. If they start to get really bad, if they're getting, lose a ton of weight, whatever, I intervene as I need to. That Enchi in particular is, she's never been a huge girl anyway, or huge bodied. She's big. She weighs 2,400 grams now, but she's always been very slender. So she looks kind of thin anyway, but she's not losing a bunch of weight. She's lost 100 grams over the last 5 months. I'm not worried about it.
Yeah.
She'll eat. I will say I have also experienced, I very briefly started experimenting with the Da Vinci Boa supplement that Billy talks about a lot in that too. And I administered the first dose back in February. I've been really bad about it. The problem is I don't have a whole lot of time with my wife to do two of these, both of us being here together with my daughter and her work and my work and everything. And that's really hard to do by myself, is the medicine and that. But even after just that one dose, I had probably 7 or 8 of the snakes that have been absolute nightmares eat, and they've been eating ever since, so there might be something to that too.
Yeah. I mean, there's loads of reasons why snakes won't eat, especially this species. We've learned so much over the years, and we've only been breeding really, ball pythons for 30-ish years. We've only really been mainstream breeding these for 20 years. We're always learning. We're learning new things. The one thing I have learned over the years is that, and I'm a data type of guy. I collect data. This species of python, and python is probably the wrong word, because when we say python, we think of reticulated pythons, Burmese, African rock pythons, the big bodied animals that will digest and take large prey items. Now, this species, it prefers smaller prey items than large prey items, and that's something that's very evident, because a lot of people will message me saying, I've tried, my snake's gone off food, what can I do? And I always say, try a smaller prey item.
Go one down. Size down.
They try a smaller prey item. Guess what, Jason? They message me going, they've took it. Okay, great. So we know that this species isn't a greedy animal. And we talk about power feeding, and, it's a term that was used back in the day. It still is flung about very, very easily now. But power feeding is a term where you would power feed something like a boa or a berm to get it up to size, to get it big proportions. Everyone wants that big snake. With ball pythons, you can't really power feed a ball python, because they will just stop eating. The minute they feel they've got enough, they will stop eating. And this is fact. They are opportunist feeders. They're not a predator type animal where they will go and hunt. They will ambush their prey. Now, there is a section between being a hatchling to being a year of age where they will eat every day if you let them. Yeah, they will eat every day
because they don't know otherwise.
Well, in their head, Jason, they're a small species. If they don't get big quick, they will end up being eaten.
Yep.
But what will happen is they will get to a point where even between that year of age, between that hatchling and a year of age, they will and can slow down and go off food, because the goodness that they're taking in is enough to sustain them for growth. So we have to learn this species and not learn how to feed them, and they're a very shy species. And these animals prefer smaller prey items than they do larger prey items. And this is normally the case. People will feed a large rat wanting to get that animal up to a certain size quickly. And people find it hard to believe, my breeder females, I only feed a 50-gram ASF, 50 to 60. Yeah, and I feed them once a week. When they're breeding, I change it to once every 5 days. Yeah, just to give them that bit of nutrition, because they're growing the follicles. But I will find that you know what, they do exceptionally well on ASFs, because that's what they would naturally eat. And sometimes people go, well, they prefer a mouse than a rat. Yeah, because that species of rodent they prefer And a lot of the species that they eat in Africa are of a mouse species.
Yeah.
They will take small baby birds. It's been reported, but that's normally when it's a hatchling kind of age, and it's exploring, and it's trying to find somewhere safe, and they will end up going in trees sometimes and finding nests and taking birds. But knowing the species is dead important, and knowing your animals, like you've just pointed out, that girl there, and this girl that. You take that animal from that, and normally it's proven breeders sometimes can be an issue where you take a proven breeder from your friend's collection, and they don't go, they're smashing food for your friend, and then you get them and they're not quite smashing food. It's just the way they are. They're a sensitive species. You have to know how to work them and be patient, like you said. But watching them, the data is key.
Yeah, no, I agree. Sorry, I'm just replying to a comment here. Kurt's Creature said, I'm hoping. Actually, give me just a second here, because I've gotten 2 alerts now that our stream, or that my connection's unstable, whatever, and now it won't let me message for whatever reason.
Okay.
No, everything looks like it's playing. So anyway, Kurt's Creature has mentioned that he's got a whole freezer full of ASS available. So Kurt, send me a message on Instagram, because they're not legal for me to own, but I would go toe to toe with Fish and Wildlife if I had a freezer full of them, that they can go to hell, because it's not invasive in that case.
Exactly.
And there's a handful of snakes here that probably would benefit from it. So
yeah, and going back to the Da Vinci boa supplement. So for years, if you keep different species, especially lizards, where we dust the crickets or the insects with a calcium powder, that's because we're not giving them the correct diet that they would have in the wild. Because in the wild, they don't get dusted crickets or dusted insects.
Of course, yeah.
So in the wild, they would have their right diet. So I'm a massive advocate. I mean, my collection runs at 92% success rate regarding breeding. Okay.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Now, there's not many breeders out there, and I think some of the breeders that we look up to don't run at 92%. Yeah. And I think a lot of that is down to food. And I've seen so many people, and again, people contacted me today. People have got, Gav, I saw your video on ASFs. I've swapped over, and oh my God, what a difference. The snakes are more receptive. They've got good body tone, body mass. They're thriving. They're not pooing so much. The poos don't smell so much. They seem to be better in color. They're growing. They're more healthier in terms of growth. And this is something, if you think about it, I'm having all this success, and I'm just doing like what everyone else does. Maybe I've got a few little techniques to breeding, which makes me slightly, gives me that edge. But I think a lot of it is down to the food that I feed them, and exactly what you've just said regarding the ASFs being frozen. They're not likely to break out your freezer and start being an invasive species, are they? So I'm pretty confident that you'll be okay with that, Jason. But going back to the Da Vinci boa stuff, the Da Vinci boa has obviously worked for people, and I'm not knocking it. The only thing that concerns me is if you have the ability to feed African soft-furred rats, do it. Do it, because it will make a difference all over. I believe my embryos in the eggs are a lot stronger. I believe I get better clutches, and I'm not talking about bigger clutches. I'm talking about healthier eggs. Eggs not dying so much in incubation. Like I said, the embryos are stronger. There's just so many pros to feeding African soft fur rats. And the one thing that you know, I've never needed Da Vinci boa, and I have a great successful bounce back rate that I talk about when we talk about females going back on food after they've laid eggs. The bounce back rate for me is normally between 1 and 3 days that they'll go back on food. And I believe that's because it's the African soft fur rat. And the only other thing I'd be worried about with the Da Vinci boa stuff is that the animals get dependent on it. You know, that's the only other thing that I think people need to try other avenues first before giving the Da Vinci boa stuff. I'm not knocking the product. I'm just saying that, you know, if you want to go and spend money on that, that's fine, but you'd probably get better results. The animals would probably be a hell of a lot healthier if you tried African soft fur rats first. You know, try their natural food item.
Well, and that's the beautiful thing about all of this is there's a lot of experimentation, and or I guess for the most part, unless you're being belligerent about it, they're fairly hardy animals, and there's not a lot that you're going to do that's going to screw them up. So a lot of it's trying to find that perfect balance of what works. Like you're saying, specifically in your environment, you know, I said in my video coming up that I attribute, and it could be complete malarkey, but I attribute a lot of the improved success rate for feeding frozen here with the fact that this room was purpose built for this. You know, I now am able to keep a very consistent temperature and humidity all the time. I'm able to put the rats out ahead of time throughout the day and let them thaw naturally so they smell up in here because it's not in my house. And I honestly believe that these gray tubs make a huge difference. I really do. Because I've done both now. And in my personal experience, I know plenty of people. My buddy Chase Baker, designer reptiles down in Dallas, he's got Freedom Breeder racks full of the semi-clear tubs. And he's been breeding that way forever, and he has great success. For whatever reason. I just know that from the DIY stuff that I had, and you know, part of the issue I think I was fighting in my old collection was I had like 7 different kinds of tubs with a variety of different opacities. Some of them had ridges, some of them didn't, so different temperatures and this, that, and the other. And I had them in white racks, so they were highly reflective of light, and so it was super bright inside and all this other crap. I went to these, and it seems like it has made a world of difference.
Yeah, and that's knowing the species again. They live underground. They're nocturnal. I believe their eyesight isn't the best, but that's something that needs to get proven. I believe that they don't have great eyesight. I believe it's all used, obviously, because they're nocturnal. They tend to use, you know, their heat pits to locate things. So there's a lot that we've learned. I've used clear tubs and had fantastic success, whether it be feeding or breeding. But my racks had always been in their own room. It wasn't in a room that got high traffic, you know, the family coming through or people walking past, or, you know, I never gave them a light cycle. And talking about light cycles, a lot of people say, oh, do you give light cycles? No, because they're nocturnal.
No.
Oh, okay. Then, you know, but going back to the rooms and stuff, you know, I would always, even if the room had a window, I would always keep it dark, you know, keep the blinds closed, that sort of thing. And I had great success. Now, when I went to Tinley and I saw the Freedom Breeder tub, I'm not going to lie, Jason, I've seen all the tubs, or most of the tubs, I believe, that's available for us. I believe the Freedom Breeder tub, for me, in my opinion, is the best. My opinion. My racks at the moment, I use an LP rack with Freedom Breeder tubs. And again, we've got to make this species feel secure. And again, I used to keep them in vivariums, in glass tanks. And I'm not saying they don't do well. I'm just saying you may have 1 or 2 that do fantastic in a vivarium. But when you've got 200, 300 ball pythons, the percentage will drop. to the point where probably 20% of your collection or 10% of your collection will only thrive in a vivarium. So for us, when we start having a big collection, we need to adhere and cater for that. So having the right type of racking certainly makes a massive, massive difference. And that's where, again, we're learning new things. I never push people and say, you must do this. I say to people, this is what I found. If you want to try it, but this is what works for me. Many times, Jason, I've had people say to me, dude, I wished I'd have done this years ago because I'm having fantastic success. Well, I did tell you, I did show.
Well, yeah, and I was going to say, and to those that are watching or watch this later, they come to me and my channel for the DIY aspect. Obviously, I've sold out and gone professional status, and
you sell out.
I'm a sellout. I went commercial grade. I've got their banner on the wall. Like it's bad, man. But for those that come to us for those DIY projects and that, I'm starting to push people that I get messages from that towards use the techniques, the tricks, that kind of stuff that you see in my videos about building the racks, but do it around these tubs. Yeah. You can still do the DIY stuff if that's what you're into and you have access to the materials and whatnot. But at the end of the day, I was paying like $12 a piece, something like that, for the Sterilite 41 quart tubs at Walmart. Now, granted, I don't have to pay shipping, obviously.
Yeah.
But those are like $12 a piece. And I think these FB40s are what, 14, 17, something like that for us. So it's a couple more dollars. You're talking a difference of like $30 for a 10 high, single rack or whatever to get started. I would highly recommend, especially if you're going to build out a melamine like I did, because of the fact that the melamine's white. And I do think there's a lot to be said about the transmission of light like you're talking about. I think if I used the clear tubs in black PVC racks like this one,
that'd be
okay. fully enclosed, I'd have probably been okay.
Yeah.
Or a little better anyway.
Yeah, I've still got vision racks, which are obviously black plastic, and I encase the sides with and the back with black plastic sheeting, and I can, I use clear tubs for that, and that works. But I've just recently got the FB5s in earlier this year, and I love the FB5.
I love that tub. I got a bunch of them right here.
Yeah, I can see that they're awesome, and those sort of tubs do well in like plastic racks like that, or melamine racks, because they've got the air vents down the side. They are designed perfectly for that. But it's like anything else. I'm still an avid rack builder. I love building racks. I remember one of your videos. I think you were swapping some of the tubs out. I think you were getting rid of some of the grey tubs for some clear tubs, something like that.
Because I had built a 10 high FB40 rack originally, and because I was able to pick up a handful of these gray ones, and I sold my gray tubs and bought the semi clears because they didn't match the rest of the clear tubs I had, and it was an OCD thing for me, And in all honesty, I think that contributed. Like, I think the feeding response of that rack in particular went down. Yeah, I really do.
But it's a learning curve, isn't it, Jason? You've learned.
Yeah, absolutely.
You now are convinced, and this is something that until you do something and then you see the difference, it's so hard to get that across. But I'm the same as you. Like I said, going back, we've learned over the years that these animals prefer smaller enclosures, because many times I've had a bigger tub and I've put a hide in there, and they've either gone on top of the hide in between the top, or they've gone at the back of the hide. They've got all this space and they're not utilizing it other than to thermoregulate. It's not what they want to do. They don't want to sit open in the wild. They don't do that. But something like a berm or a retic, they will quite happily, use that. They'll go on looking and hunting and stuff like that, and they'll be open. Because that's the type of species they are. This species, They prefer to feel secure. They don't like a lot of change. And I think once you've got it dialed in, it works really well.
Yeah, I got to interrupt real quick. So I'm watching the chat. I don't know if this was a misstep in typing it here or whatever, but if anybody knows Luke Friedel personally, can you just call and make sure that he's on point? Or Luke, if you're still watching, man, and you're trying to get the attention of your significant other or whatever, it went in here if you didn't mean to do that. So,
well, I've just clicked on. I didn't realize I could click on the comments, and I can see everyone's comments now.
Yeah. So yeah, that's obviously concerning. So, yeah. So real quick, I want to answer James' question. James asks, can you expand on what Da Vinci Boa is? Is it a supplement? Yes. So Da Vinci Boa is a breeder. He's a boa breeder here in the States. And he's developed an all-natural vitamins and minerals, basically, liquid supplement that you can buy that's supposed to help supplement for either lack of nutrition because they're off feed or whatever, or help promote rebuilding for ones that have laid, or your males while they're breeding, because a lot of times they'll go off food, that kind of thing. And he originally made it for his boas and a lot of guys have started bringing it into the ball python world. And guys like Billy has tried it out and said that he's seen faster bounce backs after laying, or prolonged longevity of the breeder males, or what have you, or help, like in my case, 1 or 2 doses gets them like triggered and fired back into feed response again, and you can get them back on feeding. So it's just it's another option. It's something to look at. It's not the end all be all. It is a little bit pricey, but it's just something to consider. An option.
Yeah, and going back to that as well, like I said, we're not knocking the product. It's there. Use it, if it's going to help, but just don't make it the go-to, supplement when you could have other avenues to work. It's like if we were eating McDonald's every day, I'm pretty sure we'd feel a bit poor. And but if we had a good, healthy diet, we sort of more energetic and stuff like that. And one thing, bit off topic, but I don't know if anyone's watched The Game Changer on Netflix. Have you seen that, Jason?
No.
Okay. What's scary is how much they talk about we are not designed to eat meat. Okay, and they talk about what we are designed for. And it's very interesting to hear it, and I advise anyone to watch it. I'm not saying I'm a vegan, but I've certainly looked at meat in a completely different light now, and that's the same sort of thing. I learned very quickly, and I thought, well, hang on a minute, I'm feeding my snakes African soft-furred rats because it's their natural food source.
Yeah,
and in actual fact, cutting out certain red meats or minimalizing red meat made me feel a lot healthier, a lot more energetic. I was sleeping better.
No bullshit. It's all steaks and potatoes all the time.
Oh yeah, steaks and potatoes. Yeah, but I love my steaks, Jason. I know. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to try it for a month. And I stayed off red meat for a month. Me and Mother, we only ate chicken and fish. And we ate more, natural food that would be for us in the wild. And I did feel healthy. I felt better. I had more. I felt fantastic, but I still enjoy my steak,
what's funny about that is I've noticed. I've not done a long enough case study deliberately trying to sort that out, and it's no closely guarded secret that I'm not in my peak fighting condition anymore. But I have noticed. I know it's the angle. Trust me. It's not unintentional. But I have noticed I do feel different when we eat a lot of wild game, a lot of elk and antelope and venison, that kind of stuff that's taken out of the wild naturally, as opposed to, cattle and whatnot. That granted, they're not stuffing them full of HGH and freaking steroids and shit, but they are, like we talked about the power feeding. The idea, because it's an industry, is this animal is only worth its weight in gold when it's actually at its weight. It's got to get to that point before it pays off. So it makes you wonder, and you think about, like, if I have an elk steak for dinner or an antelope steak for dinner or whatever, I'm also getting whatever variety of outside that it was eating too. Your sages and your brush and all that stuff.
100%. And just quickly, what I like to do, and it sounds a bit sad, but everything I try and look at, I try and think about the snakes and, in the wild, what they would be doing, stuff like drinking water. So in Africa, they don't drink water. Like, we provide them with water, but they don't drink water like that in Africa. In actual fact, they take a lot of their fluid intake through their body. And when snakes sit in the water bowl, that's then trying to take on more fluid, especially during breeding season. They're trying to take on more fluid than they can drink, because they don't drink like we would drink. And that's sometimes why when you see a snake drinking and you pick it up and water comes out of the mouth, it's because they don't have the reaction, the valve, the shut-off valve like we do, where they can hold it down. So they absorb water through their body and through their scales. And this is why, in Africa, if they were underground, you're closer to the water table underground. And when they're lying in the soil, they're absorbing water, through their scales and through their body. So, I try and look at things and think, why is that snake doing that? Why is it doing this? And it's the same for me and my body. And when I watch that program, we see in color. Why do we see in color? We see in color because red is a natural pinpoint color for us, and that's because most berries in the trees and in the bushes are red for us to see that. So when you start looking at things, our teeth aren't designed for cutting meat, not like a lion or a tiger. Our digestive tract is long, not short like a dog or a cat or a lion for digesting meat. So when you start looking at things, you actually then realize, well, actually, I'm probably not designed for eating meat. And that's why sometimes after a steak, you feel quite tired and lethargic, because your body's working extra hard to try and digest it. So it was really interesting. And like I said, just trying to use evidence from the wild with these snakes and where they would live and implement it into our little hobby, our little industry, it pays off.
Let's see here. I was going to answer another question real quick. 4S's Pythons asked, do they put the ventilation holes in the FB10 and in the equivalent of the 5540 ARS tub? So no, and the reason that these and the 8s, that 8 has a snake in it. The reason those have holes in them is because Freedom Breeder does not make a rack that these are designed for, and they're designed for these tight fit plastic racks where there's very little gap above them, because the little snakes can get out of very little gap and whatnot. So they put the ventilation to the side so that the tubs can fit nice and tight into the rack, so there's no way to get out. Obviously, with the 10 and up, Freedom Breeder makes a rack for those that has a very specifically designed ventilation panel in the top, and that way there's no way for the animal to get out, but they still have all their ventilation. So if you were going to build a rack like this, but for the Freedom Breeder, the bigger Freedom Breeder tubs, all you would do is put, the way I built mine is I put like 2 or 3 CDs stacked on top of each other between the tub and the lid or the top, bolt the shelf in that way. Then you have a 1/4 inch or whatever air gap, so you get the same circulation you would through the holes. But snakes obviously can't get out because they're a lot bigger at that point. But Man, well, it's been almost an hour and a half, so I wanted to hit on real quick before we get too deep into your time here. Aside from snakes, when I first met you, you were a cop, right?
So yeah, well, not so much a cop, but I worked as an enforcement officer, which was what I was talking about earlier, for the local authorities. So I had certain powers that the police didn't have, that we had. Exactly. So but we had certain powers that the police didn't have, and vice versa. They had powers that we didn't have. So I will work with the police so they can arrest people, but then it comes over into my jurisdiction where I have to use our local authority power to enforce what I would be enforcing, whether that be antisocial behaviour, environmental issues, and that's why I'm a warranted officer from most counties or most states in your case, or most councils within the UK. I'm an authorised enforcement officer. So I used to deal a lot with antisocial behaviour, like I said, environmental issues, commercial issues, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it was good, and I do a lot of consultant work for independent companies on how to set up their enforcement officers. And a big thing at the moment is COVID marshals. How can local authorities are being empowered by the government to help enforce COVID regulations, where the police don't do anything. They're kind of they quite don't understand the legislation. So again, a lot of it is common sense.
You said the C word, so now you've opened the can of worms.
Oh yeah. So it's all good. It's
look who showed up to his live stream.
Oh, so he could have made it. Then he could have made it. Good evening,
So answer me. We can go down the COVID route for just a second here in a minute, but I do have one myth I'd like to either clarify or debunk, and then I have a follow-up question for you. Is it true that law enforcement in, well, everybody says London, but in the UK, don't carry guns?
Correct. Not all of them.
Is there a reason why? And did you?
No, I never carried a firearm. No, I had, like, obviously stab-proof vests, radio, camera, one of those.
Oh man, now it's just getting now it's a party. So I got to start my lives later apparently.
Oh wow, how you doing, Brian? So the police officers don't carry guns. No, there are armed police, and or I'd say 50% of police officers now here in the UK carry tasers, which are classed as a firearm here in the UK. So so it is weird. Well, I say it's weird when you go to Paris. My brother lives in Paris, and the French police carry guns, obviously in America and Canada. But over here, when you live with it, you kind of, if you see a police officer with a gun, it's, wow, he's got a gun, don't mess with him, but yeah.
From your understanding, from being on the inside, what is from the government's perspective or the country's perspective, what's the justification
for not carrying a gun?
Correct.
For not carrying a gun. Over here, the gun licensing laws are completely different to the US. It's my mom used to have guns. She used to have double-barrel shotguns. We had to keep them in a secure vault. The ammunition had to be kept in a separate vault. The police had to come out and inspect your property, make sure it was all secure and out of the way and out of sight. Yeah, there's a lot of legislation, and you know what? It's the there are guns out there on the street, and we do have shootings. But do we have as many as America? No. Is that because we don't legislate? Have legislations allowing us to own guns? Possibly.
No, that's because Americans are nuts. We fucking lost it.
Yeah, so it's one of those, like, I've been a doorman here in the UK in Birmingham, and I've run a door team, and I've come across scary situations, but probably not as much as in the States, where guns have been fired or shot, doormen have been shot at, all that sort of stuff. We've had knives pulled on us and all that sort of stuff, but never really been shot at. But yeah, it's what, if you've been brought up in a society that does one thing, you think that's the norm, and then when you go to another country where they don't have it, you think that's strange. It's,
of course, absolutely,
it's a weird perspective. So
why do the Royal Guards not move or react? Because it's almost become like an international meme. Like, people intentionally go to Buckingham just to make fun of him and like point at him and dance in front of him and just see if they can make him flinch. Yeah.
In honest, I don't really know.
Have you ever known a Royal Guard personally?
No, not known a Royal Guard. A lot of the Royal Guards are obviously military serving gentlemen.
Okay.
But they're I don't know, Jason, is the honest answer. I'm not even going to try and baffle with BS. I just don't know. It's a good question, but what I will do, I will find out and message you.
Well, and I attribute it almost to like the guards at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier here in the States.
Yeah.
They are so, it's almost because of the prestige and the respect for that position and that duty, and that those guys are very regimented, very, very by the book, in that because of the position of what they're doing. And I can understand, the case of Buckingham, and that's probably another reason why, especially say if they're military,
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're guarding the Queen as well, and there's obviously a lot of tradition behind that.
Of course,
because certainly, with the big hats that they wear, you wouldn't wear that going into a fight,
No, or the bright red coats.
Oh yeah, you'd be spotted off a mile off. So there's obviously reasons for it, but it's very prestigious. Obviously, it's an honor. You're guarding the Queen, and their family. So, I think there's a lot of tradition. And one thing over here, which I frown upon, is within the educational side of things. It's very, when I was at school, we didn't really learn much about our monarchy or about our history. It was more of, Japan or other countries, which we would learn their history, and we didn't do much on our history, which I think is a real shame, because we should learn more about our history, our culture, why we do things, why we've got this, why, like when I went to the States, you guys use like Fifth Avenue, or and it's so easy. Well, I need to get to 10th Avenue. Well, I'm on 6th Avenue, so it's easy. Where over here we have road names. So there's a lot of things. We do things differently and strange, and it's just we drive on the right side of the road, though.
You drive on the wrong side of the road. You're right. Yeah, dude, I can't tell you how bad I want to find an authentic right-hand drive manual transmission, like a Peugeot or a Holden or something like that, and import it to the States, until I realize that I can never go through a drive-through again. I can't even scan into the gate when I get to work. Like,
you can just walk around. I'll tell you a story. Brian Cusco was there. I went to Canada, and Dave
Kaufman.
Yeah. It's early. It's still, my brain's.
I get it, man.
Dave Kaufman, he'd rented a car out, and he said to me, he said, I was going over to Mark Mendek's place, which is about an hour's drive from Toronto. He said, you use this rent-a-car and then just drop it back, when you're finished with it. And I was like, no problem, not a problem. I'm used to driving. My background is working in the motor trade, from the age of 15, so I can drive any car. And I was doing really, really well until I ended up at a crossroads or an intersection, or I don't know what you call it, and I was going the wrong side, and I had to quickly stop. I mean, it was at night, so luckily I was just going to a shop to get some bits and pieces. I had to stop and turn the car around real quick and get on the right on your side of the road.
You said right, I heard you.
and drive, that way, and that was crazy, and I enjoyed it, but that was a scary, I got traffic coming towards me, and I'm like, oh shit, it's me. I had to turn it around, and I delivered the car back. Dave would be pleased to know I delivered the car back all okay, but it was a hairy moment at that point, and I had to get on the freeway. I think they call it, I don't know, which we call the motorway. I had to get on the freeway to get to Mark's, and it was hairy. It was really hairy. I got my friend Kevin with me, and he was passenger, and it was just nuts. It was such an adventure, mate. It was amazing. But it was all good.
A funny story. The first time my dad went to Australia years ago, he gets out of the airport, and one night he took an airplane down there and delivered it, and he gets to the counter and he goes to pick up his rental car, and it's a Holden or whatever, right? And and of course he tries to get in on the wrong side because we all would. So he goes around, he gets in the right side, and it's a 6-speed, it's a manual. And he said he made it about 4 miles down the street before he turned around and brought it back, because he said driving on the left side of the road from the right side of the car with a stick shift, that the shifting pattern is still the same as it is over here. But it's obviously backwards when you're doing left-handed. He's like, he came back, he's like, I need an automatic. I am exhausted. I can't do all this at once.
It's certainly a lot to consider. And when I was driving in Canada, I had to, focus and concentrate a hell of a lot. But it was an eventful time. And over here, we use more manuals than automatics. But I love my automatics. I love my manuals. That it's all good. But it's certainly interesting.
Morphic said roundabouts in England are cool. Here where I live in Virginia, they've tried it. People lost their minds. Well, that's because Morphic, that the States do not have roundabouts. We have traffic circles. There is a very distinct difference because the morons that live in this country could never stand it. They get stuck in a roundabout for the rest of their lives or until the car runs out of gas. The Brits understand how to use roundabouts, and roundabouts are cool. And they're super efficient if you know how to get in one and use it the way it's meant to be used. But we don't have roundabouts. We have traffic circles because they're only at best 2 lanes wide. And it's literally just to prevent putting a stop sign, a 4-way stop sign in.
Yeah. I mean, this is what I said earlier. You guys will think nothing of traveling 5 hours. I've got a bit of a road trip, just travel 5 hours, even longer. And over here, 5 hours for us is 5 hours. That's a big drive. That's a long drive. You know what I mean? And the good thing with the States as well, fuel is so cheap. The roads are so wide, and the cars are so comfortable. And like you said, automatics, just drive it. They're designed for driving long distances.
I don't want to hear it. I just paid $2.91 a gallon for premium, so prices are outrageous right now. Gas.
Well, you think they're outrageous. You want to try paying our prices,
dude. Last time I was in Vancouver, we stopped and got gas in the rental car, and I was so confused at what I was looking at because it was dollars per liter, but it said it was like 700 cents per liter or something like I could not wrap my mind around how that math worked. It does not work for me.
Yeah. So over here, that's why in America you guys can have big V8s and 5-pint liters, because fuel's pretty cheap. Over here we're stuck with 1 liter. 1 liter cars.
Earl's got a good point. 5 hours won't even get you out of Texas.
Exactly. Earl's exactly right. It's and that's what's crazy about it. Our roads are smaller, but we're a small little island, but we hold our own. We're good. So
do you guys actually claim Scotland and Wales, or are they're their own people?
Yeah, they come under the UK.
I mean, you personally, I don't care what the government thinks. I want to know what the Brits actually think about it.
well, yeah. I mean, so here's the thing. I know a bit of my history. The Welsh were actually native to this island. I'm an Anglo-Saxon, so my hereditary or ancestors were invasive into this country. We pushed the Welsh into Wales. But I mean, Scotland want to stand on their own. They have their own sort of parliament type thing going on, but they come under the UK banner. But I see them, they're with us, or we're with them. I don't want to get too political, but I see us all as one. But I suppose it's very similar to Canada and America. And what was crazy when I went to Niagara Falls, and I'm on the Canadian side, and I had no idea that you got an American side or a US side, and you got a Canadian side.
Yep.
And the Canadians were in red because when they went on the boat at the bottom by the falls, the Canadians had to wear red, like waterproofs.
Ponchos, yeah.
Yeah, and the Americans had blue, just in case.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Just in case there was a board, let's say a ship had an issue, a boat had an issue, and you had to force a landing, they could tell the Americans from the Canadians. Yeah, that was really weird, and you could literally see. And
I had no idea about that. That's actually pretty funny. I mean, I kind of attribute it to I'm from California, and so I'm from Northern California, which is the correct side of the state, and we don't associate with SoCal. Everything south of the Bay Area that might as well be Mexico for all I care.
See, we kind of have the same issues.
Yeah.
Like Mexico, Canada, US. It's one of them things.
So what? I don't know. I'll be honest. I'm ignorant to the details and how it all works. But from your perspective, how'd the whole Brexit thing go, and have you seen any backlash from it since?
Yeah. So Brexit was basically the UK leaving Europe and being an independent type country. Yes, we've seen a backlash. If we take importing and exporting, for example, it's proving very difficult. But if we look at it from the snake aspect, is we used to be able to go into Europe, get a snake, bring it back, no questions asked, pretty much. Now there's a big thing where we have to answer questions. We have to get CITES permits, even if it's for our own collection. We have to do permits. It's so involved. But on the uptake from that is the our UK market already I've seen get stronger. So in other words, let's say a clown, if people in Europe were paying, were selling them cheap, sort of the UK market would have to kind of follow suit. Where And people would say, well, if you're not going to sell me that clown, I'll go to Europe and get it for a fraction of the price. And Europe's pricing was kind of a bit all over the place, which meant the UK's pricing was a little bit all over the place. Where now I'm starting to see that the UK market is a lot stronger because there's not, for you to get an Exantic clown, for example, you're not going to find one like that,
Yeah.
So it keeps the prices. Now the prices have risen because it's supply and demand. And anyone that knows
that makes sense.
Supply and demand, Justin did a video about supply and demand. It's happening here where the prices of particular simple combos, I don't know, like a pastel clown, is starting to get more expensive because you're not going to find many of them.
Interesting. Yeah. You guys, what is the proximity of the UK to the mainland, for lack of better terms? Like how close is that?
If you take a ferry from the UK to Europe into France, where you port over at Calais, it's about an hour on a boat.
Oh, so it's real close. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That's
it's like driving down the street for me.
Exactly. So we're able to or was able to pretty much get into Europe within a 3-4 hour window. Now we can still do that, but bringing animals back is it's even soft things like the LP racks that I have come from LP over in Denmark. Whereas before we could just get it over and we not have any issues. Now a lot of people are being hit with import charges where we never used to have that before. So it's really messy at the minute here in the UK with importing and exporting, and a lot of the, shipping animals from Europe into the UK is proving to be quite expensive. Yeah.
My only experience, I did finally get to Europe, I guess the best way to put it, a few years back on my honeymoon, but I didn't realize we were supposed to go to London. It just didn't work. And so I didn't realize that proximity because we went into Denmark, into Copenhagen, which in my opinion, in every place I've ever been is probably the coolest city I've ever been to. I was floored by Copenhagen. It was a phenomenal trip, but we went from there to Germany, I guess, was our first stop. And obviously Berlin's not on the coast, but it was the nearest port to Berlin. But it took all night in the cruise ship to get there. And so I just kind of put that scale to, UK to the mainland. I didn't realize it was that close. So
if you travel from Dover in the UK to Calais in France, it's about an hour.
Oh wow!
That's the closest point. If you go from another port in the UK to Holland or Denmark, you're probably talking 8 hours. So it can vary which way. But if it's like 8 hours from one port to another, you're only driving, let's say, an hour to that port, and then it's 8 hours on a boat, and then an hour off the other end. Where you could go the other way, drive for 3 or 4 hours, get on a boat for an hour, and then drive another 3 or 4 hours the other way. So it's that toss up. What do you want to do? Do you want to be on a boat for 8 hours, or do you want to be on a boat for an hour? It's just one of them things.
This is an interesting statement. Luke says, guys in Europe and the US are very lucky. You have access to so many more morphs than here in South Africa, which doesn't make any sense because pythons are from Africa. I have heard though that the South African market is starting to pick up quite a bit.
I've got some friends over in Africa and South Africa, and Luke's exactly right. A lot of the morphs were exported into the US, again by Brian Barczyk. and Nerd and a lot of other. Lindy Johnson used to do a lot of importing back in the day. Yep. And a lot of stuff was sent out of Africa by Noah and a few other people. But there are, and again, in Africa and South Africa, they have some unique ball pythons that we don't have. The bongo was a gene that was sent over to the US, I believe the US, not Europe. Mm-hmm. And they thought they were getting it it was still going to be covered in dirt. It had just been dug up and just been found. And that's how it was put across by Noah, that this is a brand new gene, He sold it. And then literally as they received it in the States, Noah released all these combos that he'd already done and made.
Oh, yeah.
So that didn't go down too well. That was a real, lead balloon. But again, the bongo was, already very bred quite regularly in Africa and in South Africa, and the morphs were available. But when it was sent over to the States, it was deemed that it was just a brand new gene. We've just dug this up. We're going to send it to you exclusively for $50,000. Do you want this new morph? Yes, we'll have it. Oh, damn, there's other combos already been done by Noah. So, there's some crazy stuff out there. I know that much.
All right, boss. Well, I know I've dug you out of your hole for a couple hours, and it's already time to get up and go to work now, right? And
well, it will be soon. The sun's not far behind coming up, but I should go to bed for a few hours and catch up on something.
Yeah, so I'm not going to take up any more of your time. I really appreciate it, man. I could sit here and talk to you all freaking day if we had time to, but
yeah, I mean, is there anything you want to ask me? Like, is there any projects or anything
Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. Yeah, we'll go another 5 minutes here. I'll give the people in the chat some chance to catch up, and if they got anything in particular they want to ask you, aside from breeding techniques and that kind of thing, will be something a little more specific.
Yeah, so 4S Pythons asked about the availability of price on puzzle gene in the UK opposed to the US. Very quickly, prices for us depends on supply and demand. So if there isn't much of it, it's going to be quite high versus if there's a lot of it. Like the first thing we will do when we're pricing animals, we'll go to Morph Market, we'll look at what's available in the UK, what's available in Europe, and then what's available in the US, and then decide where we're going to price something. But I'm one of these people where I try not to price match and undercut other breeders. If I feel this particular combo is worth more than what they're going for on the base, on Morph Market, the base price, because it looks better, because it's slightly better genes, then I won't be afraid to price it high. And I think that's something, we can use Morph Market as a guide, but then you need to look at their combos and compare it to yours, and does yours look better? And you've got to justify that increase in price. Well, I'm selling this for more money because you're not going to find one that looks this good.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know what it would take, and I have no idea what it would cost, but I do know that at some point I got to get one of your creations over here into my collection. I think that'd be super cool.
Yeah, and do you know what, Jason? I'd love to send some stuff over to the States. I get asked all the time, will you do this? And literally, I'd love to do it, but the cost of getting it over there, just one animal, it would be quite a lot of money. But we've got good connections now with Ozzy and Justin. Ozzy and Justin are sending stuff over here regularly. So maybe that could be going the other way. But yeah, I'd love to get some stuff out there. And truth be known, Jason, I sell out here in the UK rather rapidly. So, it's very difficult for me to supply and send snakes over.
Yep. Earl asked, what's the coolest thing you got on the docket this year?
Believe it or not, I'm excited for the Sunset project.
Okay.
As well as other things. Well, everything I'm excited for. I've just took my first clown pied clutch. It was a pied het clown to a Gene X double het female.
Oh, cool.
I've got 3 females. The second female's just ovulated. The third female's going in the glow before they go stage. So they're probably about 2 to 4 weeks away from each other. But I took the first clutch of clown pieds or potential clown pieds today. But the Sunset project I'm really excited for, even though it was a gene that it doesn't excite me. But what does excite me is making people excited about the project.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I've got my first clutch of double het Sunset pieds, Posset Exantic, Posset Ultramal in the incubator at the moment. My Sunset male's 100% het Ultramal. So he's been breeding an Ultramal female. He's been breeding some Orange Dream combos. So he's been breeding an Ivory Enchi OD female. So obviously we'll get a breakdown of that. I work a lot with Ultramal stuff. Hopefully I can hit some Ultramal clowns this season. Ultramal pieds.
Now you're speaking my language. I love the Ultramal stuff, and I've been saying for a long time that I think people are going the wrong way with Sunset, because honestly, I've said it before, Sunset does nothing for me. And I've not seen anything other than the Hypo Sunset originally. But again, as a baby, everything was good as a baby. You know what I mean? Yeah. Aside from that, I've not seen anything in Sunset that just knocks my socks off. But I have said from the beginning, I think Sunset in lavender and moreover Sunset in Ultramal is going to be where it starts to come to life, because it's the right color palette. Yeah,
and Brian, credit to Brian. Obviously, he puts cinnamon and there's Enchi floating around. And what really gets, cinnamon is such a dark gene, but it works really well with Sunset. In actual fact, what's exciting about the Sunset project is what we don't know what's going to react with, and I believe Sunset pieds are going to be phenomenal, because that pied carries the orange. So I think the Sunset pied is going to be really awesome. But I've gone like the Orange Dream route. So he's breeding an Orange Dream Enchi. He's breeding an Ivory Orange Dream Enchi female. He's breeding an Ultramal female. He's breeding what else have I got him going to? Oh, I've got him going to I stand a chance of hitting a Ultramal Sunset this season. She's going to go, but it's a big ask. Also, my male is also het albino or Posset albino. I haven't proved him out yet. So his sister that he's breeding is a possible triple het. So I'm excited for the project, and I want to make things within that project that get people excited. Brian does some fantastic work with it.
That could be silly, because I've seen the Ultramal albino. I've seen pictures of it anyway. At least only one that I know of, and it's insane as it is. So I don't know what in the world Sunset would do to that. It's funny you mentioned the pied, because Joel from State 48 Exotics, he whiffed on him last year.
Yeah, I was really hoping he'd hit it.
And I've talked to Joel a few times about it, and I kind of gave Joel some shit about it when I was on their show. I was like, here's the thing, Joel. In my opinion, the Sunset pied is either going to be mind-blowing or horrendously underwhelming. I don't think there's going to be a middle ground. I mean, you're either not going to know, or it's going to be ridiculous.
I think you're right. And what I did with this pairing, I had a female pied from a hatchling, and she was bright orange. I mean, you'd think she was an Orange Dream pied. She was beautiful. So I've taken her, and I'm hoping it will pay off in the long run. because she does make, well, she's a first-time mom, but I can just see the genetics, quality there. So I'm hoping it will be a mind-blowing project. I'm hoping it will be.
I am too, but
I'm hoping the monsoon pied will be something like a retic pied or a berm pied. The berm pieds are amazing.
Where it's just the belly, like the belly up the sides and not saddles.
Yeah. You've got loads of speckling within the Burmese pied, which just looks
like granite look almost.
Yeah. So I'm hoping the monsoon looks something like that, because again, the monsoon for me is too overpowering.
Yep.
I think it's a fantastic project. It's just too overpowering. I mean, I've got a special male that I got from Billy, which is het pied posset monsoon, and he does look like he's got the markers for het monsoon. So obviously I'll have that floating around as well in the pied project. So it'd be interesting to see, the monsoon pied for sure.
I want to see, just to see what happens, and it could be a total flop, but I want to see what happens when you put champagne with monsoon. Yeah. I want to know which one is overpowering enough, and if there's some way to maybe, if it, like, you might get some weird clash where it stays super bright, but it blows up the pattern into like pieces or something. Like, you have no idea. It's gonna, who knows?
Exactly. And I think it's going to take someone, someone crazy enough to do that pairing, just to say, you know what, let's just do it.
Just to try it.
Yeah. Or it's going to happen purely by mistake, and they're going to go, wow, look at this.
Or what happens with even the hets? I mean, because champagne het pieds look like pieds anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what's crazy. We still don't know. We're talking about incomplete dominance, dominance, and recessives. Yeah. What if I said to people that actually super pastel is a recessive?
I know where you're going.
The pastel is just a visual markers for the recessive version, which would be the super pastel. Then we start blowing our minds,
Yeah, because I've said before that I now have one animal with het red axanthic in it, and that pisses me off because it doesn't match the nomenclature of everything else in here. But if you talk to a geneticist and stuff like that, Corey Woods is 100% correct, and everybody else has been wrong.
Yeah. Yeah,
so.
100%. And Corey Woods, I met Corey when I went to Canada. I used to watch Corey and Ralph Davis on Ralph Davis's forums argue, and they used to have some real deep arguments back in the day. And, and this is why I'm open-minded, because, like I said, we're only 20 years in the mainstream of breeding ball pythons, where more and more people are breeding stuff, and we're going to find more stuff out. Like I've found out, well, I wouldn't say just me, but I know compatibility can be a major issue with breeding, and that's something that doesn't get spoken about a lot. Compatibility is a key. We also have, not only do we have the morphs, but we all polygenic. We have polygenic traits, which again we don't look at. There's so many things we're still learning, and how the genes react. I mean, recently we found out about the kryptons and the cryptics.
Yep.
We're still learning.
Yep. Well, I know we've gone. I always, my wife always says, try to make them an hour. I'm like, that's not going to happen. I shoot for 90 minutes.
I apologize to your other half.
And they always end up right at 2 hours, but I try my damnedest not to go over that. But before we say our goodbyes, we have to leave you out, because I know the background of this story, which is the funny one here. But Earl, Lone Star Reptiles, wanted to make sure he said that shirt you're wearing looks super incredible with the bumps in it. So
yeah, I sent you a t-shirt with bumps in it all. I'll send you one. Yeah,
I've not seen the T-shirt, but Earl told me the story the other night on the phone. So
so the story is, I've been meaning to send Earl a T-shirt, and me and Earl have good banter, and he said to me, make sure you send me a T-shirt with bumps on it. So I got together with MJ Designs. I'd say it was more their idea than mine, and we got a print done on the front of a T-shirt of chest and abs.
So if anybody is,
it was all cut out.
Yeah. So if anybody in the comments is unaware, Gavin is shredded and stacked, and Earl and I are not. So, dude, I've seen that video I showed you of yours that I have on my phone. When you put that shirt on, I thought it was going to explode. Like
it fits well. Let's put it like that, Jason. I still wear it. You know, I wear it with pride, and this is the thing. Like, you know, I was always a heavy kid when I was younger. I'm not built for running marathons. You know, I'm a little short person. I'm designed for lifting weights, and I love bodybuilding. I've competed. That for me is it keeps me grounded. I know Dave Palumbo not only through the snakes but through bodybuilding, and we talk a lot. And for me, bodybuilding or going to the gym has always been a real good anchor point for me. And it's not my hobby, because snakes are my hobby. But going to the gym,
lifestyle now.
Yeah, it's part of me, Jason. You know, it's part of me. You know, I eat not so much. You know, during lockdown, it just really messed with my head. But I'm back on it now. You know, I'm eating 6 times a day, staying, you know, mentally, and yeah, it's just good. You know, I just like to. I do this for me, no one else. I don't care what people think. You know, people say, oh, steroids, it's this, that, and the other. And trust me, and this goes back with the snakes, when people say, oh, it's easy to breed ball pythons, it's easy to go to the gym and look like that and just put steroids in. If it was that easy, everyone would be walking around like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and everyone would be operating like Justin Kabelka, you know, millions of pounds a year. You know, it's not easy. It's a lot of work. And dedication. So, you know, I just do it for me, Jason. You know, I try not to walk around like that. I'm very, you know, I try and keep myself very, you know, yeah. So.
I just wish for me, and I know it's a mindset thing more than anything. I just wish I had the dedication to do it, because I always joked and said, and I ran track in high school and whatnot, but I've always said I'm certainly not meant for sprints and that, because there's a lot of mass here and it takes a long time to get it moving, you know. Yeah. So,
well, but you look at sprinters are massive dudes, you know.
It's more muscle mass. It's more flippant than anything else, but and I always said when I was in school, my body's not built to build, because I was always a fairly lean kid in general, and even when I was in great shape, even when I was in the military, all that stuff, I stay fairly lean in general. Yeah. And I don't put on size very well if I was like trying to bodybuild or whatever. As I've gotten older, and I'd say probably 26, 27 and on, I've noticed if I go to the gym and actually stick with it, I actually start to build fairly quickly now. And that might just be a later in life kind of thing. But I'm also not doing a lot of like cardiovascular stuff like I did in high school. I was running track, and I was riding BMX and, you know, that kind of stuff where you're not just trying to build your whole body movement kind of thing. So I don't know. It's I go back and forth all the time. I've like, my gym's 6 minutes from here. I was like, I can so easily just go do it, but I just need to go do it. You know?
Exactly. And a lot of things, again, snakes, genetics have learned me a lot regarding our human genetics and our human DNA and all that sort of stuff. If we were breeding snakes at school to get clutches, I think I would have paid attention a lot more and learned a lot more at school. But, you know, genetics play a massive part. You know, I'm not a tall guy. You know, I'm 5'8". I'm just me, you know, and I think you've got to work to your strengths. And, you know, I trained as a firefighter, and my whole training had to completely change. I was running every day. My stamina, I had to change to stamina training, which was interesting. I really enjoyed it, but I'm built for being in the gym. You know, I'm in the gym 40 minutes to an hour tops. I train hard. I don't go on my phone.
That's part of my problem.
Yeah, I don't go on my phone. I shut it off, and I just concentrate. I want to be in and out that gym as quick as possible, but most of the work is done with eating and resting and being active. So yeah.
Well, I got to get you. I got to get you a new shirt with our new logo on it for you to stretch out.
Yeah.
And we'll get that going. But man, I really appreciate it. I've wasted plenty of your time tonight, and I know it's super early for you, and I got to get to bed anyway. But
yeah, thanks for having me on, Chris. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate it. We'll have you on later in the year too, and again,
yeah, sure,
maybe on a better timeline for you. We can.
Yeah,
I'll get up in the middle of the night next time.
Yeah, I want to thank obviously all the people that have joined us as well. I'd like to thank them for joining in, especially for a few people in the UK. But yeah, I'd like to thank the guests, not the guests, sorry, the people on the chat as well for joining in as well. That's fantastic.
All right, man. I'm gonna set you aside real quick and sign out with them, and we'll be out of here. All right, guys, there you go. Freaking Gavin, man, from all the way across the pond in the middle of the night. A huge thank you to him for sure. But that's going to do it for this week. And I do have a video, like I said, I filmed yesterday, so I'll hopefully have it up ready for Thursday. And next week is Earl, Lone Star Reptiles, who dropped in quickly here. So we'll get his side of the story, so to speak. And him and I are going to talk scaleless because I'm interested in where he's at on all of that and all the controversies. So make sure you're subscribed and you got the notifications turned on, and share the channel with somebody that you know, and we can grow it and get more people in here and hang out and have a good time. So that'll be it for this one, you guys. I'll see you next week. See ya.